Mike Norvell was asked today about the Texas A&M job. Now, first things first, I preface it by saying that's not surprising. Get used to a young coach who's having success, who's turned a program around rapidly, who's innovative, who's well thought of within the coaching community. And this has been an interesting year, right? We have listened to coaches, our opponents. Those coaches say a lot of flattering things about Norvell and what he's meant to the program and the way that he's built it. And that includes people that haven't always gotten along with, say, Florida State. Dabo Swinney has nothing but great things to say about Mike Norvell. I don't need Dabo to say those things. I don't really care that he does, but it's worth noting because he has been a preeminent coach in this conference for the better part of a decade. Many others have done the same. So Mike's reputation is expanding beyond Tallahassee. He was great at Memphis. He's been very good here, and he's going to get a look when other jobs open up. It doesn't mean that he wants to leave. It doesn't mean that he's going to leave. But I think we as a fan base better get used to the fact that his name is going to come up. When Penn State gets tired of losing every single game they play against anybody who's any good, you're probably going to hear Mike Norvell's name come up to replace James Franklin. If a couple of SEC jobs open up, you're probably going to hear Mike Norvell's name as a possibility at those jobs. Now, here's the thing. Florida State is not a stepping stone job. The administration is all in on football. The revenue surrounding football continues to grow. But there is a stark reality here, which is why we've made so much noise about wanting to get out of the ACC, and that is that we are able to bring in less money than SEC programs because of our godforsaken, sorry-ass television contract. And so there are schools that have more money than sense, like Texas A&M, that could throw crazy figures at coaching candidates. And so I think a lot of people in that situation are all ears. Now, I don't think that Mike's going to take the Texas A&M job, but I wasn't surprised at all to hear that he was a candidate. Here's what Mike Norvell had to say about that today.
Coach, two national outlets were discussing a coaching vacancy and put your name on a potential list. I know you can't control your name being involved in those things, but what is your sort of reaction when these things happen, and how do you manage that in your conversations?
Yeah, there's not really any point to talk about it, in a sense. I mean, it's funny how how sometimes those things get out there and people want to try to use that, and especially in recruiting and things like that. Well, I told recruits 2 years ago, and a lot of these guys that were recruiting now, I said, well, it's funny, 2 years ago, every coach was talking about, well, how long is it, how long is he going to be there? They better win some games or he's not. But I told him then, I said, watch, in 2 years, everybody's going to be trying to use the other thing. Well, but this is like that. I can't control any of that, and obviously, we're so excited about what we're building here, where we're going, the opportunity that's ahead. I mean, this is it's a special place, and that's. I think that speaks for itself. So, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and but I can't control all those things.
All right, so a couple of things here. It's going to be fascinating because fans of any school want their coach to unequivocally say that they are not going to take whatever the job rumor is, right? That they're not going to take that job. No matter what, they're not going to take that job. That's what fans want to hear their coach say. Now, Mike was not asked right there by Aslan whether or not Mike would take the Texas A&M job, and of course he wouldn't have answered it, I do not believe. In that situation, it'd be kind of weird, given that they're preparing for a game this weekend, fresh off the win against Miami, and then they've got the game against Florida there in the midst of all this. And I don't, think that Mike is leaving, no matter how nervous the fan base gets. But I will say this, and Nick Saban learned this the hard way. You don't speak in absolutes about these jobs. I've said many times over the years that even if you are all in on a job, you owe it to yourself and your family to listen to whatever job offers come your way. Doesn't mean you're going to take them. But, I've said, what if, and some of these schools, A&M in particular, are insane. Some of them say things like, we'll give you $200 million to come take a job. And you might say, well, golly, I mean, there's more to life than money. Yeah, there is. But your agent, your attorneys, and the people that represent you are going to tell you, my man, let us do our job. Mike might want better facilities tomorrow. He may want any number of things, more money for his assistant coaches. He may want a lot of things that he currently doesn't have that don't have as much to do with his personal pocketbook as it does the program building that he wants to engage in. And so therefore, this is leverage, potentially. And you're just not going to get a lot of coaches say, no how, no way, no matter what, I'm staying here. Very rarely. Every now and again you do, but not always. And that doesn't mean they want to go. It doesn't mean they are going to go. But in that situation, you can talk about a lot of things, and he did right off the bat. He's happy here, excited about what they're building, excited that they've got this going in the right direction. He knew that this day would come because he was confident in what they were building. And I think that's true too. And those are all fair things to discuss, and it's great. But I think that it's naive. It's naive to think that that coaches, any coach, anywhere, in any job, wouldn't at least listen to what was being offered. I'll put it that way. Things have changed a lot in college football from a financial standpoint over the last 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, hell, and it continues to change. So coaches are going to listen. They're going to listen. I do hope, obviously, that this is a situation where Texas A&M moves quickly. I think by virtue of the fact that they fired Jimbo with games still to be played, it indicates they have their guy.
I would tend to agree there because it's important to message to the current players you have what the solution is and who the coach is. Maybe if it's even hinting because you don't have ink on paper, but you tell the kids that you've got a plan. It's just this is part of the domino effect of the early signing period and the transfer portal and those windows. You have to act earlier than you ever have had to before. Because if you're going to bring in a new guy, he's got to have at least a fighting chance to go make some, in-home visits and use those bullets in the chamber, assemble his staff, make those calls. Signing day is a little bit later on the calendar this year. It is Wednesday, December 20th. Usually it's closer to the 15th. So you have a few days there, but every day is critical.
And the portal opens before that. It's on the 4th or the 5th. So it's time to go.
It's humongous. Like this, yeah. Everything about these windows creates a situation that just wasn't so 10 years ago. You could play it out through the 12th game, make a change then, and signing day's not till February. You got plenty of time. You have an interim coach for the bowl game. It still is the old staff, and then we'll waltz in on the first of the year, and we'll set the tone, and we'll get some momentum going in January. It's just everything is so much more compressed now. So I understand that. For me, I'm not worried about Mike. What I'm worried about is, okay, so now A&M's fired their coach. Mississippi State fired their coach. Michigan State's changing. I would think South Carolina might be looking long and hard at the end of the Beamer era. I'm looking for the best players on each one of those rosters, and I'm saying, who can we get from those rosters to join our roster and make our team better moving forward? I'm not looking at what's on the outgoing side of the market. I'm looking on what is potentially can be on the incoming side of the market.
You and me both. I just wanted to give a bigger picture discussion or lend a bigger picture discussion to what a lot of people in the fan base will be worried about or thinking about, which is that Mike would even consider another job. And it could be A&M, it could be any job. It could be USC, it could be Michigan, it could be Ohio State, it could be any job. Most every coach, and certainly their agents, are going to say, hey, let us do our job. I know you want to stay there. We got it. But we're going to listen because we're going to create leverage and we're going to get the things you want, whether that's more money for you or more money for your coaches or more money for facilities. Let us do our job. And I think almost all coaches these days are business savvy enough to listen to that and do that. They're not going to come out and say what every fan wants them to say, which is that I am not going to take job A, job B, jobs. They're not going to say that.
Yeah, I think in a sense, given where Florida State is record-wise and what we have before us this season, the opportunity this season, and given that these windows open when they do, the fact that decisions need to be made in November or early December at the latest is kind of a nice shield for this year for Florida State. You're going to leave a playoff roster at Florida State? I mean, you know what I mean?
Mike's not going anywhere yet.
He's not going anywhere, but I'm just saying, even if he was offered the moon and you're going, what in the hell kind of number is that? You're going to leave this situation? Like if we had 1 or 2 losses and are out of the college football playoff discussion, perhaps you sit down and you have those conversations more seriously. But there's so much before you here. Like if you were Dabo, for example, and I'm not saying that A&M's going after Dabo, but you've got 4 losses. And if A&M decided to restart the clock for you, I think in that situation where you've got nothing before you except hopefully an 8-4 finish, like you would listen more seriously than if you're Mike Norvell, you're undefeated, you're about to go to the playoff, and your stock is going to go through the roof in the next 2 or 3 years. If you're talking about getting down to the dollars and cents of it, my value hasn't even come close to peaking as a commodity. It's still on the way up. I finish the job here. I do it right this year and the next year or two. Man, I'll be able to name my number in Tallahassee or elsewhere. Yeah,
and a lot of these guys, I mean, Mike's making over $8 million a year. He's doing all right. I mean, they're not hurting for money right now. It's they're not like, this isn't one of those situations where we've all been in jobs where we're making, not a lot of money. And all of a sudden that offer is double what you're making or triple what you're making. Oh man, I kind of got it. That's not, a lot of these guys are wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. And he's young and wealthy. Mike's got a very bright future, but he's got a very bright future right here. And I think you're right. And Florida State is one of those jobs. That's why I opened my comments with Florida State is not a stepping stone job. But we do have to confront, the longer we stay in the ACC, the reality that our coaches will be targets in any of the sports that we play in. Obviously, you got a great softball coach, you got a great soccer coach, you got a great whatever coach. I'm in the SEC. My coach ain't getting it done. I got twice the money you have, 3 times the money you have. I can make them an offer they can't refuse. That's the mentality of a league like the SEC and a league like the Big Ten. And if you want to guard against that, you got to get the hell up out of here.